Hello, everybody. It's Christy back again from Optimal Wellness, Yoga, and more. And this is my favorite time of year, even though I don't have kids. The whole back to school and all the office supplies, it just makes me really super excited. And now that we are almost a full month in, it's planner season. It's time to start thinking about 2024 and what we want to do for planners. And I will have to say, this was a thought out impulse purchase. I got a little wrapped up in all the Hobonichi hoopla. I was going to just go with two common planners next year, one for tarot and one for just my standard planning and tracking and sort of diary. But this month and a little bit of last month, working in my weeks as a bit of an ink journal and doing this 30 inks, 30 days, and seeing how other people are utilizing planners with their ink and fountain pen play, I decided to go ahead and hop on the Hobonichi bandwagon. And I not only got my first early purchase Hobonichis, because my Hobonichis last year were bought in January and February, but I ordered from Japan. So this was fun. There was a little bit of a drama with getting my package. It was misdelivered, but with the help of my wife and a keen eye on the not so helpful photo from FedEx, we were able to track it down at a neighbor's a few doors down, and we got to meet a couple of our neighbors. You know, we've only lived here for a year, but we just met more than our one neighbor that we connect with on a regular basis. So that was good, all in all. I have a question for you, though. Have you ever ordered and then surprised yourself when your order came? Because that's what happened here. Maybe it's because it wasn't, within the next couple days like my typical Amazon purchases, but I was surprised by some of what showed up. So let's get into it. This is an A6. I have the cover on there. I'm not sure I'm going to keep it because, and in fact, maybe I'll just take it off because the glare here is pretty bad. I love how they engineered it. Having the little ziplocky thing so that you can still access this back pocket is super clever. I really appreciate that. But given that this is the canvasy sort of, it's not a fabric that'll snag or that, and I probably won't be taking it outside the house much at all. And I may move on to my tarot journal right now, because my tarot journal is on an A6 right now. This is the A6, just the regular Techo. I went with the English version again because I like that the only odd color pages I have to deal with are Sunday. Not a fan. I like to coordinate, so I have a tendency to try match whatever colors are on the page. So I went with this one. I do appreciate the weekly view of the ink swatches. So, and I like the monthly view. So what my thought is at this moment, and of course, plans are subject to change. My thought is that in this one, I think each month I'm going to rename to a color group. And I haven't quite decided on what my 12 color groups will be. And I will do my swatching of those colors in each of these monthlies. And then my thought with the dailies is that I would like to be able to write more about the pen ink combo experience than I've been able to do in the week. So if you haven't watched my 30 inks, 30 days, this is what I've been doing in the weeklies. Is I've been doing a little scribble swatch, the pen and the ink, and then what my experience was with that combo, and then I gave it a grade, with C being just average, A A plus would be I'm never going to look for another ink to put in this pen, which is probably a stretch for me. That's probably not in my, it's probably not likely for me to do that. And so far my highest rating is an A for the Tomo and Lin's Kaleidoscope Ibuki, which is a shimmer ink. So that's like a big deal in and of itself, because in general I'm not a shimmer ink person. With that and my Pilot Falcon Flex nib. So I like that. I'm loving how the monthly view looks, even with my little mistake. You can watch the previous video to learn more about that. But I'm liking seeing all the colors laid out in the month. So I'll probably still do a shorthand rating over here, and I might instead just like rate the ink, rate the pen, and rate the combo over here. And then my description of the experience, then I'll have more room and I can do it here. So in some ways, my new weeks will act kind of like an index for this one. And in the back pages, I plan to keep like a ink wish list, a pen wish list, a nib wish list, because I do want to get into some custom nibs. I'd like to get a few bespoke pens that take Yovos, so I can just swap out and try different nib grinds. So that's kind of my thoughts on where I want to go with the pens in 2024, and hopefully this will help me do that. It's just your standard, like, cheaper cover option from Hobonichi. So you've got a few different pockets here and some card slots or sticker sheet slots, and the built-in bookmarks, which, since the Techo doesn't have bookmarks, that's kind of nice. It has two different shapes on the end of the tassels, so you can remember, even though they aren't different color, you can look at the ends to figure out which one is which. And then, as usual, they have the dual pen loops, which you can then hold it closed with a pen. And this is the freebie pen that you've been seeing all over for the month. I like that it kind of coordinates with this cover. It's not quite a match, but it's very similar. So that's kind of fun. I would like to probably replace the ink in here with those color families, but something a little softer, like kind of the, I don't know if I can get the, what is it, the Sarasa vintage colors, if I could get those to go in here. If you've got any tips on getting different refills for in here, I'd appreciate it, because I'm not one for your straight up ballpoint blue or red. So I would stick in that color family, or maybe just cool and warm of some variety. The black's okay, or I might do a blue black or a green black. Or maybe a purple, because I love purple, but I would like to switch out the colors here. But this is my first foray since like junior high into the multi-function pen. So that'll be fun. My other purchase was this Weeks. I fell in love with the A5 pencil board by this artist last year. And because I'm working with ink with this, I do like having the clear cover on, which I have on this year's, on my 2023. And so I went ahead and ordered the same thing for this one. I can't remember the artist's name. I'm horrible at this. Tomotaro Makino. And so I'm actually going to tip this in so it stays with this notebook. And I did get the coordinating pencil board for it, which I just love. I'm a sucker for botanicals. I think part of it's the shaman side of things. Like, I just really like to connect with nature and follow the cycles. And I like doing plant spirit medicine. And so it was just a natural to do this. And I think I forgot to mention that I also got the A6 from this artist. I did not order the A5, and I don't know why I didn't, but I think I probably will go ahead and order that stateside at some point here, because it only makes sense, and one can never have too many pencil boards, if you ask me anyway, especially if you like to add stuff into your planners. So I got that. The Weeks, if you're not familiar with it, hard to pick up off the they all come with a attachable pocket that can go there. And so then I wanted to give this page keeper thing a go, which the idea is you put it in this pocket, or it actually worked in the cover too. You can put it in the pocket of the cover, and then the elastic goes over the corners of the page and marks your page, which I like the idea of, because I find that these the page markers are so skinny. I mean, I like that because they're unobtrusive, like, and keep them in place while you use the page, but it also means that they're easy to miss and that. So my plan here is to use it like I have been this last month, and that's to do swatches of inks on the monthly view of the inks, whatever inks that I put into pens like that given week, and then I'll like star the date where I actually put the inks in the pens. That's kind of my thought going forward. And then you know, on the given day or week, again, doing some more swatching slash stroke tests with the combo. And like I said, I might just break this into 3 or 4 vertical columns and do an ink, a pen, and a combo. And maybe I'd give a rating for tangling too, just to know like how the ink does in terms of picking color back up and redistributing and retaining line definition, those sorts of things. So maybe I would do 4 columns, maybe 3. I'm not sure. I'm undecided, but that is currently the plan. Like I said, plans are subject to change, and my Weeks this year, which was my first time using a Weeks, has gone through a couple iterations. I'll just give you a little bit of a peek here. I've barely used the monthlies in here. I did some where I was trying to do some of my tracking in here on the monthly. One thing I've been working on emotion regulation and naming my emotions and stuff. And one of the things that has helped me is to think about all emotions as being on a spectrum. Well, on one of 5 spectrums, because everybody's definition of say frustrated is a different level of anger than the next person's frustrated. For some people, frustrated is kind of low on the scale. You're just kind of annoyed. But for others, frustrated is much higher on the scale. Like they're getting really upset. So the scales are mad, sad, glad, scared, and shame. So in the early part of the year, I was trying to remember to come back here and just put a check in each that corresponded to mad, sad, glad, scared, and shame. I kept that up in the early part of the year, but by this point, I've really kind of mastered that. So it isn't a practice that I'm really needing to do so much. I pretty much am naming my emotions consistently. But there were a lot of things in my early childhood that made me kind of deny emotions and try to hide them, although I kind of wore my emotions on my sleeve too. So then I originally bought this in hopes for it to be my tarot journal, and I got fun tarot stamps to mark what my daily draws were, but they take up the whole spot for the day, so I couldn't write any sort of reflection on it. So then I tried just writing a summary of my 3 card pulls. I tried a few different things just in this one week. And then I'm part of Don Michelle Tarot's Weavers. And so there are monthly workbooks that she puts out with different practices for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of each week. And so I was trying to squeeze all three of those on this one page, and it just wasn't working. But because this isn't a mega, I was afraid to go back into these extra pages and do it. So the little bit that I did do, I was doing my own moon draws and putting them back here. But I was really, because of the number of pages, I was wanting to fit it, one on one page, and that really wasn't allowing me to get super detailed either. So this quickly fell by the wayside, and I moved it into an A6 Techo. But I tried using it for just my daily log of what I did for self-care, what DBT skills I used, what I was looking forward to, and what I was grateful for. So this is a really good practice. I really like this practice. I just didn't like how it looked in this format, but I like starting my day with what things are worth looking forward to today, and then noting what self-care I'm doing, because if I'm dysregulated, I need to lean into that self-care more. And like my pain levels can dysregulate me. The road construction outside our home the last 2 weeks can dysregulate me. A neighbor is getting siding redone, so that can dysregulate me. If the dog gets crazy, like there's all kinds of things, because I'm sensitive. I'm sensitive to sounds and such. So those can kind of set me off. And then I use DBT skills to try reduce the negative impacts and to try bring myself back into regulation. And then to close out the day by remembering what you're grateful for. It's just, I found it to be a really good practice for me and my mental health. And I highly, highly recommend it. And I highly recommend DBT for anyone who has some issues with like effective communication, compromise, balancing relationships, setting boundaries, naming your emotions, all those sorts of things. DBT is amazing at. And I actually share a lot of things I've learned from my time in DBT as part of my yoga therapy. A lot of them map right back to the Yoga Sutras and the other classical yoga texts, because DBT stands for dialectical behavior therapy. DBT is a spin-off of CBT. What's her name again? Marsha Linehan took CBT and added elements from Eastern spirituality. So there is yoga in there in layman's terms, non-yogic terms. So it really is a natural fit for me as a yoga therapist. And I will admit, my first little bit in DBT, I was like, why am I here? I know all this stuff. I do this for yoga therapy. But I wasn't applying it so much. And I happened to luck out in that my facilitator that I got on the second try, she was really focused on how to apply the skills to daily life. And it has been life-changing for me and for my partner. We even, when we watch TV now, we'll comment on a character like, boy, that was really good. Really good personal effectiveness, interpersonal effectiveness. Or we'll be like, oh, way to use dear man. Or, wow, they set good boundaries. Like, we play this game of naming the DBT skills that we see used or obviously absent. Like, oh, they really should have tapped into some radical acceptance here, or what have you. And if you don't know what those terms are, that's okay. I do bring them up in my group yoga therapy sessions and my privates as well, on a fairly regular basis. But of course, I educate you along the way. So don't let that scare you. So I do really want to go back to this sort of thing. And I really liked, this was a good form factor and stuff for using the weeks. So that's my intention for this new one. And again, I just love this cover. Then for how I surprised myself. Now, if you're not familiar with the Hobonichi lineup, you may be saying, why does that have 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028 on there? That's because this is the 5-year diary. And as I was putting together this order, there were lots of things in and out of my cart. And I thought I had really passed on this one, but I'm so glad I didn't. Because getting it from Japan, even with the shipping, it was so much less sticker shock than ordering it here stateside. So it's a 5-year diaries. The idea is you write some lines on June 7th, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028. And what I like about the Hobonichi one that I haven't seen in the other 5-year diaries, like a lot of other companies make them. Midori has one. I'm not sure who else, but there's also just, your standard off Amazon 5-year diary. Most of them have one day here and one day here. And this one, instead, you have a blank page opposite. So some people will just spill over onto this other page, so they have more room to write. Some people have collaged here, like if you went to a concert one year, maybe the ticket stub goes in here. Maybe there was a sticker from your coffee order or something. Like they just kind of collage here. And so I'm excited to do that. And there were multiple reasons that I wanted to do the 5-year route. And yes, I realize that 5 years in one diary is a far cry from 21 consecutive days of 30 inks, 30 days. But I had a phenomenal experience with my therapy recently. We were coming up to the point where we had to come up with our new behavioral health objectives. And this is something in Virginia we have to do every year. And it's supposed to be mostly my choice, but then, guided and finessed a bit by my therapist. And the last couple of years, I think they've been more or less the same. Not that there hasn't been progress over those years, but I still wanted to work on those things and get better at them. But I was able to call up a bunch of journaling I did around writing my objectives in July of 2020. And the way we wrote the objectives back then was your goal, and then also how just a second, is it still recording? Okay, it is recording. My cast to my iPad stopped. Okay, so if I'm off screen, sorry, I can't see, but I think I'm okay. Back to my 2020 assessment. The way we were doing it then is you had a goal, and then you listed your barriers and your strengths and what actions you were going to take to meet that goal. And I really like that aspect. And going back and looking at that from 2020, it was such an amazing experience to see how many of those barriers I have pretty much eliminated, or I have figured out how to manage quite effectively. So I want this to help me see those things, because at some point in therapy, you get to the point where you stop having these big leaps where you feel like, yes, all my hard work's paying off. And instead you have these very small incremental improvements. And of course, no healing is linear, right? So sometimes you go backwards too. But it's important to realize that, it may feel like you're slogging up the hill, but if you stop and really take the time to look behind you, you will realize how much farther up that hill you really have climbed than it felt like in that moment when you turn around and you look out and see how high you are above that level when you started. And that is important. Like, we need to see progress. We need to celebrate our progress. And that gives us motivation to keep going. So that is part of why I made this purchase, is I'm hoping to be able to see over the years some of the shifts and changes in my methods of thinking and all of that kind of stuff. The other reason I really wanted this is that my paternal grandfather used to keep one of these. It was, the standard, like whatever you could probably pick up at the drugstore at the time. So it was, one day on one page, one on the facing. And of course he did no artwork in his, but he every day, and I remember him going and sitting at his desk for a few moments in the evening, before bed, and he would write down the day's high and low, any rain amounts, and he would note down from different rain gauges, like across the road at our place versus their place, and even down the road at an aunt and uncle's place, because in the summer a lot of times it's thunderstorms, so the rain totals can be drastically different from location to location. But having that information would give him some idea of how much rain the different fields may have had. And then he would also note down crop achievements, like the corn was yay high, or we applied this fertilizer today, or whatever, anything that went into the daily farm operations, milk prices, grain prices, all that kind of stuff. So he could look back and see how it compared to years before. And there were stacks of these. And so in some ways I feel like taking on this practice will connect me a little bit more with him and with my ancestors in general, which is part of what drew me to the shamanism too, is I feel like it's going back to my roots. Even though I am living in a major metropolitan area, it makes me more cognizant of the seasons changing and the animals' migrations and all of that sort of stuff, and staying connected to that, A, helps regulate me, but B, also makes me feel connected to my ancestors and supported by them. So super excited about this. I did not get a cover though. So if you have a favorite cover for the 5-year that you would recommend, aside from the Hobonichi, I may end up just going with that because I'm assuming this is a very specific, yes, it's A6, but I presume that the chunk of the book is very specific. So it may just be easiest to go with one of their A6 covers. But if you have other suggestions, please leave them in the comments down below. I didn't bring my freebie bags. I got 2 of those. I got 2 of the pens that I showed you earlier. If we're swapping inks or anything at some point and you would like my extra pen, or you would like my extra little tote bag, I got the orange one that says day on it, and I got 2 of the same one. So if that interests you, just let me know and I'm happy to throw it in with any ink samples. And there we go. That's my Hobonichi haul, my very first Hobonichi haul for 2024. So thank you for being here. Let me know, what did you pick and what are you using each of your Hobonichi planners for? I'd love to hear in the comments down below. And until next time, please be safe and be well. Aho, and so it is. Bye.